The thing is that when it comes to social media networks, the right wing is going to have an easier time doing that because these are very wealthy corporations. And those are always going to skew right. They're always going to skew right-leaning because wealthy people skew conservative, obviously. They want to exploit more people's labor and keep more of the money generated by those laborers, right? So whatever levers of power there are have more of a likelihood of being used to help the right. It's, you know, as we can see through Meta, Facebook being more favorable in their algorithms to right-wingers, more so just because right-wingers are more bombastic, loud, controversial, and therefore drive more engagement, which drives more impressions, and impressions equals money for advertising revenue and all this kind of shit, right? There's also that understanding that you should have about why that is. It's not just pure ideology, it's also more money, which, you know, is why lefties should be more vitriolic and problematic and, you know, generate more impressions if this is the battlefield we're going to be operating on, right? Got to be more aggressive. Why do you never see anybody on the right move to the left? Is it a grift money thing? No, it's because right-wingers don't believe anything. In order for someone on the right to move to the left, they would have to decide to start believing in a better world. They would have to start acknowledging objective reality, studies, factual information. That's really difficult to do. For people to move from the left to the right, they just have to decide to be really dumb on the internet and in public, and suddenly you're a Republican. The Republican Party celebrates morons. Try not to be ableist here. On the left, you kind of have to give a shit a little bit. Also, there's not a lot of money going around on the left. At least, you know, by comparison, right? Like, nobody on the right would grift to the left past trying to funnel people from the right, or from the left to the right. Like what people like Glenn Greenwald do. But they're still on the right, and they're still... But they pander to the left, you know what I mean? To try to get people further right. Because, like, you're never going to switch from being a right-winger to a left-winger because you're just going to lose a bunch of money if you're in it for the money anyway. And if you're a Republican, you have to be in it for the money and power because you don't have any actual principles or beliefs. You don't have any policy that you care about. You just care about having power and making other people's lives worse. Giving corporations even more tax breaks and allowing them to hoard even more money. It's really not a super involved political project. Meanwhile, the left is trying to stop the world from burning up due to climate change, trying to allow for people to have good qualities of life through really difficult and complex social safety net systems, trying to improve the infrastructure of the country, which is a really difficult and logistically insane task as well. They're trying to make it so that everybody, no matter their marginalized status, can live an equitable and equal life to everybody else. It's really difficult to be a leftist because you have to actually not be really dumb. But to be a Republican, to be a right-winger, you know, you can literally just be shitting directly into your hand and smearing, like, Make America Great Again on the wall with your own shit, and then you'll get votes. So it's like, it's an uphill battle. I was actually going to record a quick thing about it. There was also an article that I read that I thought was really interesting. Not related to it, but like tangentially related to it. This is the tweet that I put up in response to it. The Alejandro Caraballo posted, the donut hole in Tulsa, Oklahoma was firebombed after it hosted a drag show. This is the inevitable outcome of stochastic terror induced by Tucker Carlson, lives a TikTok from Rufo, Matt Walsh, etc., etc. I wrote, after all this, these motherfuckers are still poor, still having a hope for the future, still living day to day just like everybody else. Except for the rich pigs that sold them these lies for their vote. But at least those queers are scared now or something, you know? And I went on to say, we're living in a kind of induced transphobic psychosis which trains their anger on an infinitely marginalized group to stop them from looking at the capitalist mood on their neck. Divide and conquer, same it as always has been, same people always falling for it, shame. Because, you know, clearly I've been saying the same shit for so long, essentially just banging my head against the wall, that, like, at a certain point, this doesn't, like, make me scared. It does, like, worry me, obviously, but it doesn't, like, scare me. It's more so a disappointment. Like, I'm not angry with you, I'm just disappointed. You know what I mean? Like, this does nothing for anybody. Nobody wins when fucking mentally ill lunatics like this do this. You know, and I should be clear that when I say mentally ill, deranged lunatics, I'm not saying that, like, this person is, like, some kind of aberration on the right. This is the standard Republican. The only difference is this person had the stones to go out and do what they're always talking about doing. You know what I mean? They're all that bad. It's just that not all of them are willing to, you know, potentially trade their lives away for it. but they still think the shit. Like, it's just disappointing, man. Because, like, it's possible that this person is, like, actually wealthy, and it doesn't really matter. It's not really possible to know unless we find out who it is. But, like, the fact of the matter is the majority of people that vote for the Republicans and that are really excited about, like, Florida Board of Medicine banning trans healthcare for the youth, those people are not doing too well in their life. The reason why they're targeting trans people is because they're not doing well in their life, and they've been sold the lie that if they can get rid of the trans people, that their lives will finally be whole again. But they won't. They're still going to be poor. They're still going to be living paycheck to paycheck. They're still going to be living lives that they hate. And the reason why they think this way is because the wealthy capital owners in our society, the multinational corporations, and the politicians that have bought them have decided to feed them these lies to literally get them to fight with, like, the smallest percentage of the population possible, instead of the wealthy people who are literally making their lives hell by cutting taxes on themselves so that they can hoard more of it, not give any of it to anybody else, which then neuters the social safety nets that a lot of right-wing states take advantage of. I believe it is the case that red states are the bigger recipients of welfare than blue states are. They don't get paid well because these dumb fucks have been told to be anti-union and have been told to be, you know, against minimum wage increases and shit. So they're getting no goddamn money. And it's like, at a certain point, all I can do is be disappointed. Like, that's what else is there to do? As me, anyway. When it comes to what is there to do if you're, like, a trans person, or if you're, like, the owner of this place or whatever, certainly self-defense is something that you should be looking into practicing, right? Because we are in the United States, a lethal or non-lethal method of self-defense, and then training in its use, as well as training in general self-defense and also first aid. Incredibly important, because if this place had people in it when this was happening, those skills would come in handy. I don't know exactly the laws in Oklahoma, but if this motherfucker, if there was somebody with a legally owned and licensed firearm on the other side, I'm pretty sure that person, when met with this person breaking the window and throwing a Molotov cocktail in, would be within their legal rights to defend themselves with a firearm. I feel like this person might think twice about doing this if that was the case. This is the very simple reason why we can't simply disarm the United States of America. It's too many guns here right now. That is a longer-term project. And currently, I don't think we should be disarming anybody on the left. I think we should be arming people on the left, because the right also arms themselves. The right has more people that are more interested in guns, are training with guns more. Now, obviously, a lot of them are fucking dumb fucks and don't know actual good gun safety or decorum or anything like that. But at least they have the tools and they have the vague idea of how to use them, if nothing else. Self-defense is really fucking important, man. The big problem is liberals have decided to be the biggest pussies on the planet, and they've decided to, like, go along with this, like, oh no, we have to disarm the left. They have to disarm liberals, because their eventual goal is wanting to disarm everybody, right? There are some, you know, liberals that are good on guns, but there are certainly a lot more of them, especially in the Democratic Party, which aren't. I don't know, man. Because we're not meatheads? That's not even true. For one, there are, you know, so-called meatheads or whatever on the left, specifically leftists, but also liberals. Now, there might not be as many, but, I mean, we should also be making the space more welcoming in certain ways to people you might describe as, like, meatheads or whatever. Easiest way to do that is not be, like, Tumblrites about shit. You know, be a little problematic every now and again, and also deliver progressive messaging on a variety of issues at the same time. I do this. There are other people on the left that do this, like Vaush, like Hassan. You have to make the left not appear as, like, this small social clique of very sensitive people. Because, like, it's fine that there's a lot of sensitive people on the left. There's also there's a lot of sensitive people on the right, too. They just interact with that differently. They get really mad and firebomb donut shops because they happen to host a family-friendly drag event. The sensitive softies on the left just, you know, type on Tumblr and Twitter about how saying the word moron is ableist and you shouldn't do it or whatever, right? Like, there's certainly a difference in the sensitivity and how it affects these people, and it's fine to have it. But that just can't be the only conception that people have of the left, because then they're not going to want to join it. if that's not who they are. And we need a rainbow coalition of people. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk about why being ableist is the website. Just kidding. Not based himbos. Well, I'm not even... Well, that's the thing, is that, like, not all these himbos are based, but we can help them get there. You think the right is more skilled than the left when it comes to technology? No, not necessarily. I don't know that either is really more skilled. The thing is that when it comes to social media networks and control of these networks, the right wing is going to have an easier time doing that because these are very wealthy corporations. And in some instances, multinational corporations, you know? And those are always going to skew right. They're always going to skew right-leaning because wealthy people skew conservative, obviously. They want to exploit more people's labor and keep more of the money generated by those laborers, right? So whatever levers of power there are have more of a likelihood of being used to help the right. It's, you know, as we can see through Meta, Facebook being more favorable in their algorithms to right-wingers, which, you know, might not just be like ideologically motivated. Do you imagine some of it might be for some people there? More so just because right-wingers are more bombastic, loud, controversial, and therefore drive more engagement, which drives more impressions, and impressions equals money for advertising revenue and all this kind of shit, right? Like, there's also that understanding that you should have about why that is. It's not just pure ideology, it's also more money. Which, you know, is why lefties should be more vitriolic and problematic and, you know, generate more impressions if this is the battlefield we're going to be operating on, right? Got to be more aggressive. But there is also the possibility of ideological motivation by the people who own these services. Also, the Republican Party is much more likely to be willing to engage with and platform and work with the, like, new media, YouTubers, live streamers, bloggers, like, social media accounts that are on the right. They are more willing to bring them onto their mainstream platforms like Fox News or their radio shows, or like even have, like, as Tucker Carlson shows up at like TPUSA or whatever, you know? They're more willing to work with those people. The simple fact of the matter is the Democrats aren't, because the Democrats are trying to walk the tightrope of being corporatists and also appealing to some people's sensibilities when it comes to certain economic things and certain social things, right? They're trying to be Republican light in a lot of ways, but also, you know, liberals in a lot of others. And that's a difficult tightrope to walk, especially when, in this analogy, the left, the leftists that are, you know, unfortunately forced to be part of the Democratic Party are counter to a lot of the goals of these corporate liberals, these corporate Democrats. A lot of the leftists and the policies they support would actually hurt those corporate Democrats. So they're less likely to want to work with them. Whereas these far right wingers, these absolute nut jobs that Tucker Carlson and them are willing to platform and work with, and the new media that they're willing to work with, are also just in favor of the same shit that they are. They just, you know, might say more slurs when they talk about it, right? So, like, there's not really as much hesitancy when it comes to the right wing in working with people like that, you know? Like, the far right still upholds capitalism, still wants to give the wealthy more money, still wants to cut taxes on the wealthy, still wants to do all the shit that the wealthy conservatives and Republicans want to have happen, the corporatist conservatives want to have happen. They're just a little bit more loud about their, you know, hatred for anybody that doesn't look like them. Like, the mainstream Republicans that aren't like that are still, you know, hateful of those people. They have the same ideology, they just talk about it differently. This is very simply why liberalism is a roadblock to actual progress. It's certainly better than conservatism, and I would take it over that, but it's just not suitable to deal with the actual looming threat of fascism. Clearly, historically, it has not been. It is what it is, man. So, like, something else has to be tried. But, you know, it's difficult to fight against the moneyed interests that involve themselves with politicians on either party. It's difficult. To be a leftist is to always be fighting an uphill battle. It is the most difficult political position to take, which is why the prospect of people grifting by being a leftist is fucking insane. The people that do that pretend to be leftists and then are actually right-wingers and play like the both sides shit, but also pander to the left and try to bring more people from the left to the right, like Jimmy Dore, like Glenn Greenwald, etc., etc. Anybody actually grifting on the left is a fucking idiot. Literally just be a right-winger if that's your MO. You make more money that way. But, I mean, you know, those so-called grifters on the left do still serve a purpose, even if they don't, like, get the most out of it. by sowing discord within the left, by positioning themselves as if they are on the left, like a lot of tankies do this, for instance, and causing left-wing infighting and making it harder for the left to unite around, you know, common goals and principles and whatnot. It's unfortunate too, Sarsa, because Tim Pool has been pretty mask off for a while. Like, if you pay attention to literally anything Tim Pool says, it's abundantly clear he is literally just a far-right winger. He posits himself, the aesthetics that he uses, as like a milquetoast centrist. But like, I feel like if you got two brain cells to rub together and you just listen to what he's saying, he very clearly is on the right. Would you ever go on Timcast to talk? Maybe in the past, but not now. I don't really see much utility in myself doing that. Obviously, it would be a good idea because that's a big platform compared to mine. But I just don't know that I would have the skill set necessary to, you know, have a convincing performance for my side. Just because I don't do debates, I don't do discussions. I watch a lot of them, but like I don't do them. So like Vosh going on Timcast is pretty good because he's effective in that realm. It's a different skill set. I don't have much practice in it, so that's the difficulty there. Well, Joe Rogan's also a right winger. He also just pretends to not be, right? Well, Joe Rogan's just an amorphous blob. He's like Donald Trump. He just believes the thing the person who talked to him last said to him. Except on very rare instances, like when it comes to weed.